Mass Effect. This franchise has been one that I have truly loved playing throughout my life. The story of Commander Shepard and his crew is one of the best stories in gaming, with heartfelt emotion, gripping action, and lots of calibrations. The iconic stories that this space odyssey told will go down in history, but has that legacy begun to be tarnished? Let's discuss it. Hello and welcome to the Echoverse Unlimited Show. Today we are going to be covering the Mass Effect series, one of my favorite series that I've ever played. I played it when I was younger, the original games, and I've also played through the Legendary Edition. I played through Mass Effect 1 on stream, but I played through the other two in my own time, and truly it is a masterpiece of a trilogy. I have a lot of love for it. BioWare, I think for me it outdoes Dragon Age, but it's more because of what I'm into. Dragon Age Inquisition is a great game, but that's a whole other conversation. So I figured with the release of, or the upcoming release of Mass Effect 5, I don't think it will be this year. That could be this year. I need to check that out. But it is coming, and they showed off Liara. So it could be that they're returning away from the Riderverse, and it's all very exciting. So I thought we'd start with the basics, go from Mass Effect 1 through to current day, and talk about the different games and whether and why it's so good, and also why it's not so good in some of the later releases in the franchise. So that's the plan, and we'll just see how it goes. So, without further ado, let's start from the beginning with Mass Effect 1. Okay, so let's start with the game that began the legacy, and that is Mass Effect 1. Now, this game is standing the test of time at the moment. It's obviously quite aged, so I'm trying not to approach it from a technical standpoint because we're not looking at the Legendary Edition. The original editions of the game, obviously, they did the best of what they could at the time, and for that, it was really good. I remember playing this for the first time years ago and instantly falling in love with Shepard uh, and his entire crew throughout the journey. It was just the story is what held this game up. I didn't particularly love the gameplay. We'll get onto that in a minute, but the characters and the story was just mwah, chef's kiss. I mean, who couldn't fall in love with that face? Graphics, they are aged. I won't lie to you. And that's why I think I've recommended Mass Effect to some of my friends before, and they've said I just can't get through the graphics. And I do understand that it's quite a hard thing to do to go from modern day big, great CGI fests to or not CGI. Is CGI the right word? Anyway, you know what I mean. To old and less good, but for the time, it's still really good, and I think it stands as such a strong backbone. The story pulls that all up, so I don't think it's any weaker because of its graphics. I think it's just withstanding the test of time at the moment. And I think it's really important for you to play this game first and sort of get a feel for the universe, get to know the characters, because otherwise in Mass Effect 2 and 3, you're probably going to feel a little bit lost when certain characters come back, or your decisions might not carry over, so you may miss certain character choices and actual whole character arcs, which I think is crazy to think about. So I think it's really important that you just push through this game, even if you don't do any of the side quests. I don't recommend that because side quests can lead to a lot of good rewards and like come back in the future games with like extra decisions and stuff. So I do recommend doing that. But if you really can't stand the graphics, just push through, get to the final boss fight, and you are golden. Obviously, that wasn't it. That was what I would recommend before Legendary Editions come out. Now Legendary Edition's out, you can sort of enjoy Mass Effect 1 in the same nostalgic way, but with the graphics on top and running smoother and less jutteriness. And so you have a more definitive way of playing it. And I think that's great. This game made me fall in love with the universe, and that's what the first game should do. Now you may be asking, what could top such an amazing game other than with better graphics? Well, Mass Effect 2 can. So Mass Effect 2 is one of my favorite games of all time and is definitely my favorite installment in the franchise. It is exactly what a sequel should be. It builds upon what Mass Effect 1 did great and makes it even better, and also takes the graphics, the gameplay, and just smooshes it all together. So I sort of mixing these two sections together. So Mass Effect 1 gameplay, you don't actually have ammo. If you've ever played Apex, it sort of has L star kind of content, kind of combat even. where you're firing and then your gun burns out and then you have to wait for it to sort of cool down a bit and then you can fire again. So you don't have ammo, which is useful for not going around collecting ammo and stuff, but it's not so useful for like structurally keeping your game your combat moving and like staying alive and stuff, because once your gun burn out it takes a few seconds to like come back. So I think the ammo works much better and is why most companies go with that nowadays. Some people prefer the L-style kind of gameplay, but it's not for me. Obviously graphically the game is better in every way. The character models are a lot better, for sure, look a lot less um cartoonish, I guess. I think in Mass Effect 1 they can look a little bit cartoonish. But it's no, the graphics and the score is lovely. Like it fits every situation. Companion wise, you have the exact same companions that you had before, minus a few, and you love them even more. This was the game where I fell in love with all the companions the most, apart from maybe Jacob. And Shepherd Commander became my new favorite phrase, thanks to Legion. If you haven't met Legion yet, go play Mass Effect 2 and then come back to this review because you need to meet him. The story, in my opinion, is a 10 out of 10. All the characters are flawed, but they are heroes at the end of the day. And all of them have an interesting thing to bring to the table, apart from maybe Jacob, as I said. There's always one boring human character, usually a human male, in each game. So in like Mass Effect 1, it's Caden. Mass Effect 2, it's Jacob. Mass Effect 3, it's Jax. Is that his name? See, I don't even remember his name properly. I think it is Jax. Oh, am I questioning that now? Anyway, the first companion you get in the game, and usually they are the one that you get from the beginning. But the rest of the companions are excellent, and you want to spend as much time with them as possible. The loyalty missions are the highlight of the game. It is what you spend most of your time doing, and if you don't do them, you're absolutely stupid, and you'll find that out at the end of the game. Because if you do not get all of your team to love you, then the suicide mission could really be a suicide mission, depending on certain decisions you make. And I just loved it. That the ending is superb, the final mission, the story is intrigue and mystery, and the threat of the Reapers isn't fully realized yet. We're starting to pick up that, oh shit, these guys are quite scary. Instead, we're focusing on the collectors, who are notably a little bit less of a strong villain compared to the Reapers, but they're still good. I still thought they were creepy and ugh. But no, I have a lot of love for this game. It just is the perfect sequel and should be held up high as a excellent shooter and especially decision making game, because we are sorely lacking those other than Life is Strange. So developers of all age, if you are making a choice based game with some shooty combat, so then please look at Mass Effect 2 for how it's done. Now we're going on to the final installment of the main trilogy and Shepard's journey, and that is Mass Effect 3. Okay, so Mass Effect 3. When we look at this game, it's a much more controversial entry with mixed reviews. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people are indifferent. I am someone who loves the game, not as much as Mass Effect 2. I don't think it builds upon the story as well. But as I think as a resolution chapter with all these different conflicts that you've known throughout the galaxy and your time with your companions especially, is a really good resolution to that. Sure, the three endings at the end aren't the most interesting, but I think the story for the most part is really badass and cool, and you really feel like you're about to fight this final threat. With Earth falling in the first few minutes of the game, you are then thrust into it to try and save it, bringing back old faces, new faces. If you have the Legendary Edition, you'll have the Citadel DLC, which is the best DLC I think I've ever played. Just a really cool story, and it's perfect for the last game in this franchise. You just have one last blowout with all of your companions throughout the game who are alive, and it's an impeccable DLC and is one of the strongest parts of the game if you have it. The gameplay is still the same gameplay, if not a bit more refined. Graphics are also refined a little bit more, with the focus being on the Reaper threat. You have to have these big sort of set pieces and stuff like that to look at, and it looks really beautiful. I mean, one of the first missions you play is Paladin, and I remember thinking, fuck, this looks so good. So they did a really good job there, especially for this is still quite a dated game. It's not a new release, but it's just a really epic final conclusion to this game. Now, the endings were the most controversial part, and when they launched, they had fans in uproar. So they came back and they released an extended version of the endings, and I think it fixes a lot of the problems, not all of them. I don't think it's the best way they could have ended the franchise, in my opinion. Um, I'm not going to give spoilers because my hope is that you watch this and then you think, wow, this seems like fun, so I'm going to go play it. So go play it, see what the endings are, or at least YouTube the endings. I'm just refusing to spoil it for you, and then come back and put in the comments what you thought about it, if you like them, if you dislike them, and why or why not. And I will be sure to leave my views on that. But I think this is, compared to Mass Effect 1, a massive leap in storytelling, and obviously the rest of the technical upgrades because of the time. But I think it shows just how far the developers have come and making really great games. And it may not be one of my favorite of all time, but it's probably my second favorite installment in the franchise, and offers a really strong resolution to Shepard's story, who you've been with now for 3 games, which is a long ass time. You are very connected to your custom made Shepard. Um, and it's just, I think it's flawed, but then unless it's perfect, what game isn't flawed? So I think in the grand scheme of gaming, it's not that bad, especially with some of the games that are releasing nowadays. So if you are interested at all in playing Shepard's story, I highly recommend you give it a shot. If you're into Star Wars, play Mass Effect. I'd definitely recommend getting the Legendary Edition, though, because it is the most definitive way to play the game, and you get all 3 games and can go through them all as slow or as quick as you like. One thing that I didn't like, and I nearly forgot to mention this, is the multiplayer aspect of the game. The actual multiplayer itself is fine. It's a bit of an add-on, so you don't have to play it if you would prefer not to. However, the inclusion of that, where you have to play multiplayer to get the best ending in the story, it's not really a thing now, which is good, but before it was fucking stupid. And I don't know why on earth they decided to do that. It just doesn't make sense. I know they wanted to push like the multiplayer with like the crates and stuff, and that was just EA probably. But I just really didn't need to be there. I played the Mass Effect multiplayer a little bit. It's nothing special. And I got bored quite quickly. So to force players to go through that if they don't like multiplayer and just want to play a good single player game, it just really doesn't work. Don't do that again. They learned their lesson for that, I think, because they didn't do it in Andromeda. Which, speaking of Andromeda, what is next? Oh dear, this isn't going to go as well. This is where I believe the franchise took a turn. It's promised a new location, a new universe, new characters, and most importantly, a new badass villain. We received none of that. And I think what hurts so much about this game release is it's a massive disappointment because of what could have been. The potential that they had here was limitless. They could have done so many cool things with it, but instead threw it down the drain and released Mass Effect Andromeda. Do I think this is an awful game? As I often say when I'm doing these reviews, no. I think it has some redeemable qualities, which I will talk about here, but for the most part, it's just not the same as Shepard's trilogy in terms of quality. The new races, the Angara, the Ket, they're just not very interesting. They're basically humans, except with extra tentacle heads, and the Ket are black. And that's just, they could have been so creative. Like, look at the Turians, look at the Krogan. They're so unique. And this was done years and years ago when technology was much harder to make these sorts of things. And instead, they just created this. And it's just, why, BioWare? You could have done something really cool here. And I was just disappointment. In the end, all we got is lackluster villains and tired faces. If you know, you know. So we're going to break this down piece by piece. Let's start with the story. So you play as a new sibling, either male rider or female rider, and you are the first explorers into this new galaxy. You're on the human arc. Your dad's the leader of it. You have a robot companion, or AI companion, leading you through the way. A bit like Cortana, but he sort of comes with you, more like the Ghost in Destiny. Actually, is a good sort of match for that. And you fight your way through the new galaxy, learning new things, setting up new outposts in different planets, meeting loads of the different inhabitants of the planet, and it sounds really cool, but it's not. It's not fun, and it's just I didn't have any mean. I will never replay this game. It's one that I finished all the way through, but I would never go back and start playing it again in the hopes that I might have missed something like I did in Mass Effect, the trilogy. I played that 3 times now. And that's really sad because I think a big part of Mass Effect is the choice, and I just feel like it wasn't as strong here. And ultimately, your consequences didn't really matter that much. So I was very disappointed with that. Next, the companions. Now, for some of the companions, so PB, Drac, yeah, that's it. Cora's okay. Those 3 are sort of the ones that I really enjoyed and thought they were good companions for the most part, and they were pretty much made up my team. Even the new Angara companion wasn't that bad, but I just thought the others were pretty boring and lifeless. I just didn't have any connection to them. I didn't think, hey, you're awesome. I can't wait to play more with you. And sort of stuck with the whole team the whole way through because there was no one else I really wanted to swap out, which is in stark contrast to the other games where I'd constantly be like, fuck, who do I want to take? I feel like they would be better for this mission story wise. It makes sense for them to be here. I'm in a romance with them, so I guess that means that I should take her. And, all these questions made for a lot more compelling story because you'd have all these different characters firing different advice and thoughts on the situation at you, whereas I just had the same 2 going through, which is not like Mass Effect at all. Also, it felt like they just threw R at the wall. By R, I mean R rating. The sex scenes in this game are on another level. I know they were in Dragon Age Inquisition, but here they just went sex, sex, sex. And it just feels like they wanted to have something like The Witcher, and so they were like, well, The Witcher did that, and that went well. Dragon Age Inquisition did that, and that went well. But it doesn't make sense if the people you're romancing, you don't care that much about. PB is the best romance option in my opinion, so that's the route I always went down. But it still just felt a bit hollow, and I didn't really have any connection to her overtly compared to like Tally, who I romanced in the previous trilogy, Ashley as well. I know she was a bit of a space racist, but she was my space racist. So I don't know. It was just a massive disappointment to see companions instead of just having one human, like Liam's the human companion who's really boring in this game, but instead of just having him being the only boring companion, you also have the Turian, who I don't really remember. The Angara isn't that good; he's quite boring, so I wouldn't really consider him a great companion. And then I think that's it. And if there's more, then that just shows how forgettable they are. And it's a real just shame that BioWare did this. And I hope in the next game that they put a massive focus on that. But we'll talk about that in the last section. And the gameplay, score, and graphics are all what hold the game up. They're really good. They make for a fresh galaxy and keep things interesting. When you're looking out at the set pieces and listening to the music, you genuinely are going to have a good time. All of them are fun to go around, I guess. You have a new vehicle to travel around, which is a bit like the Mako, but easier to handle, I guess. It's just, I don't know, lackluster and kind of boring. So, at the end of the day, I think it did tarnish the legacy a little bit, but for me, a franchise can survive a bad game. If you have a bad game in a franchise, that's just bad luck. BioWare's having a bad old time at the moment with Anthem, which we're not going to talk about, and some other different issues that are going on within the company. And I blame EA because I hate EA. Please invite me, sponsor me, love me. Joking. I don't want to be sponsored by you. Or maybe I do. Am I really a sellout? Anyway, um, it's just, can they turn it around? Let's discuss that. And so that leaves us with what is to come for this franchise. With the reveal, we will once again be seeing Liara in the flesh. I don't know what that means. Does that mean we're returning to the Milky Way galaxy with a whole new, fresh story? Maybe a return of Shepard? Maybe. As in like a prequel or something like that. Or maybe you play as a Liara, or you play with Liara as a like companion. I don't know, but I'm cautiously optimistic for it. I also am interested to see what they're going to do with the Rider thing. Are they just going to remove it and pretend it doesn't happen? I would love to see the Milky Way post Reaper. I think that would be a really cool time wave to play against. I'd like to see it maybe a few years down the line, so it's not all completely rubble, but there's still like some deep issues going on in there. That would be really interesting. Or will they instead opt to redeem the Rider curse and try again with a more interesting story, better villains, some new races? I still think they could do it. I didn't hate Ryder, I just didn't like him particularly. I didn't overly love Shepard in number 1, so I still think that there is a potential that they can make Andromeda 2, which I hope they don't. And suddenly be like, hey, Ryder's really cool. I'm into this. So I'm not scrapping the Andromeda Galaxy just yet, but I would prefer to return to the Milky Way, or at least a new version of it. So, more specifically, what do I need from Mass Effect 5 for me to consider it a success? Well, first things first is the iconic cast and story. For me, this is the most important. The story has to be interesting, engaging, the characters have to be back to their iconic selves, and you genuinely have to have a lot of interesting things going on. Otherwise, you're just going down the same hole as Ryder and his motley crew. So I think put a lot of time into writing, delay it if you have to, just make a really solid story that has engaging quests, engaging character storylines, loyalty missions that matter, and you feel like, damn, I really want to get to know these characters better. And all this can be done if you have good companions, scrap some of the weird arc stuff that you were doing. I didn't really like any of that, and the outposts and stuff, and replace it and put all that time back into making the story great, because that is what holds up your games, BioWare. So that's number 1. 2, the races. You're still in a new galaxy. We just didn't go to the planet where this one race is living on. Bring some new ones in that are somewhat interesting and have new life. I know the Ket are going on a bit of a cloning spree at the moment, but you can change the villain like you did. You had the Collectors instead of the Reapers, and you had Saren in game 1. Let's have a whole new threat, someone a lot more badass and someone a lot cooler. Looking maybe some demon shit, some wings, that sort of stuff. That would be really cool. So that would be the second most thing. I mean, as for a case study, look at Javik. Javik is a perfect example of a really, really well done new companion race. Obviously, we'd heard of the Protheans, but we'd never seen them. So to see them in like a companion form was really cool. And I'm sure they're in some diary entry or codex entry that I hasn't read, there is a name of a new race that they could include. And I would love to see it. Just go crazy, BioWare. Let your imagination run wild, please. And finally, this is a bit of a tack on, but space battles, please. Proper space exploration. None of this more tabletop sort of movement. I would love to be in actual control of a spaceship, flying around like I did in Guardians of the Galaxy. That would be awesome. Having your crew like come in and comment. I've seen it done in Guardians of the Galaxy now, so now I want it in Mass Effect. It would just be awesome. Or the next Star Wars game, either or. But I just really, really want that ability. I'm awful at it, but it's a lot of fun. Ship customization. That's another thing that would be really easily done and would look awesome and be a really cool thing. Obviously, you had it for the inside in the Mass Effect trilogy, but that's not enough. We want it on the outside. We want to be able to color our ship. And then if we're seeing it on the outside, that would just be, that would be so cool. So Mass Effect. There's so much you can do. You're in space in a fictionist world. You don't need to stick by any rules. You're in a new galaxy. No one knows what's out there. You can do whatever you want, BioWare. So truly just please show some innovation, some creativity, and I will be fully on board for this new journey. Or old journey. If you bring back Shepard, please. Please. I'd love you. Actually, no. Scrap that. I don't want to see Shepard again. Shepard's had his story done. I'd like to see a reference to Shepard, maybe like a video log or something, like they did in Andromeda. But I would like to see maybe some of the companions like Garrus, Rex. If they came back, I think I would have a heart attack and probably be like, "Oh my god!" And I'd fangirl just so much, and it would be a very entertaining stream. But yes, they're the sort of key defining moments. Iconic cast and story, some innovation and creativity, especially when races are concerned, and fucking space battles, because who doesn't want space battles in their space game? Get on it, BioWare. Take notes. So, I'm cautiously optimistic for the future of Mass Effect. Do I think it's too far gone? Nah. I think they can still redeem this franchise. As I said earlier, any franchise can have one bad game. If they have two in a row, you're looking at a career killer. But with Mass Effect 5 coming out, I am praying to all of the gods, no matter which game or franchise or religion they are from. I am praying to all of them that we see an interesting new experience and a breath of fresh air into this aged franchise. After the release of Mass Effect Legendary Edition, I have faith that we can see Mass Effect once again become the Odyssey we remember. And that is something I'm very excited for. Thank you so much for watching the Echoverse Unlimited show this week. I'm sorry if it feels a little weird. I'm very tired. I'm getting this pre-done before I head home. So I just wanted to cover this. It's been a topic I've wanted to do for a while. If I ever do, I'm looking at doing legacy reviews. So there might be a poll or that coming out if people want to see it, depending on how Guardians of the Galaxy review goes and the movie review, the Fallout. Depending on how they're received, I'll definitely look into doing some legacy reviews, and I will probably do a more in-depth review for each of the Mass Effect games, do a lot of research into them, play them through again, and just properly write out a full review for each. But I hope you enjoyed it anyway. I'm really loving doing these. Please do let me know if you want to see any changes to the style, if you think some things could be improved, or if you're just absolutely loving everything. Also say that too, because that will make my heart go boom, 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 boom. So yeah, but ultimately, thank you for watching, and I will see you sometime next week. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, guys. Stay noisy. I love you all. Goodbye.